Good morning. My name is Mel Wilkinson, and I am your worship associate for this morning. I want to thank you for coming this morning and welcome you to our gracious lands where we have built on the lands of the Cahuilla people, and we share with them the grace that we walk upon this land with. I want to welcome all people who come to us and are anywhere on the spectrum of normality within the human range. I would like to welcome Reverend Ian this morning and begin with the ringing of the Tibetan bowl.
Good morning again. I'm the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor and joy of serving this congregation as its minister. However you found us, however many times you've been here with us in person or online, welcome. We are a congregation and a tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving future for all of life. We strive together to build the beloved community of resilience, hope, kindness, and love in the face of fear and apathy. We practice the opening of hearts, the working of hands, and the lifting of spirits in the service of love. Come, let us worship together today. We're going to begin together today by singing, as we always do. I'm going to let you stay seated for this one. We're going to sing, our opening song is called Where Do We Come From? The words will be on the screen. Some of you may remember this, we've done it before. Don't panic because you see 4 parts there. You'll be okay. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to sing through the whole thing twice, and the whole thing means each of those 4 parts twice, and then the whole thing again. Does that make sense? So repeat each of those lines twice, then we'll do the whole thing together again, and then you're invited to pick one of the 4 lines and sing it to your heart's content. Whatever line speaks to your heart today, or your mind today, or your voice today, whichever of the 4 lines you remember. Sing, and you don't have to be married to one of them for all time. If you decide to switch halfway through, that's okay. But we're going to sing all of them all the way through twice together, and then I invite you into a glorious noise. Okay? Okay. Malcolm, could we have some starting pitches, please?
What are
a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Let's all sing mystery, mystery, and mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery, mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Wonderful. Thank you.
If you'll join me this morning in the opening words of the chalice lighting. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Good morning. This morning I've asked Cutler to come and light our biopot candles as we recite these words. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as one community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. We live in a vast and shining web. These are the words of the Reverend Dr. Molly Hausch Gordon from her sermon in the general service at the Unitarian University of June of this year. We live in a vast and shining web of organized relationships where we stay connected, where we prize our interdependence, where we turn towards each other, where we mend what we tear, and yes, we are heartbroken together. And there we find our power. I hope you have a web like that too, in your community, in your congregation, in your beautiful family of choice. I hope you have a web, I hope you are weaving a beautiful web like that, where we'd already know that love and loss are intertwined. And because we've accepted that tender truth, the power of our care cannot be stopped. And this too is the promise of our faith, that when we accept the tender truth of our aching, dangerous, sustaining connection, the power of our care cannot be stopped. You know the woven web, joy and sorrow, hope and despair. And at our best, we are rooted in it, and we are sustained by it. And there is nothing woven that we need to fear, because we are learning to mend. Because we are willing to cry and rage together and dance and rejoice together. And with the strong threaded needle of our heartbreak and our care, we present to all of it together, and that is where our power lies. In depending on each other, and knowing we depend on each other, and being unafraid to depend on each other, because it's all woven so tight, because everything depends. We are here together, tangled up in the glorious ache of love and weaving and mending, and when all else fails, joining our tears. By this the world is sustained. Just these threads, all of them, wound and bound together, unbroken or mended, encircling. And finally, we pray, we promise, we proclaim, finally woven whole.
Each month, on the third Sunday of the month, we share our offering plate with local organizations that help us do the work of our faith in the world. This month is a little bit different. This month, we are sharing our offering with an organization that does our work in the world, and that organization is us. But a specific piece, not the general fund, not the worship fund or coffee and cookies, but this is the minister's discretionary fund. The minister's discretionary fund is a fund that this congregation has created, that many congregations create, to collect financial resources so that when the minister is asked for help, when someone in the congregation or in the community is homeless for a time, the minister can choose to help and find shelter for that person, or perhaps food or money for gas or help with an electric bill when the air conditioner goes out in the middle of the summer. The minister's discretionary fund can be used to do all of these things. It's confidential and private. I'm the only one who knows who gets the money. And it is something that we do to help support the members of our congregation more than just taking care of each other if there's a financial need. So this is the minister's discretionary fund. We often collect monies throughout the year for this and also at special services. So today's offering will be split with the minister's discretionary fund of this community, and I invite you to give as generously as I know you always do. We all carry. So I invite you now to pause, please, together in quiet. Be relaxed in your seat in a way that is relaxing for you. Breathe in a way that is centering for you, and pause together in this space. Spirit of life, we have gathered here, joyful at the sight of each other's faces, grateful to see the faces that we know, appreciative of seeing faces we've not met yet but will know soon, hearing each other's voices, the sound of each other's breath. Being in this place together, we are grateful. Grateful in the knowledge that we are connected. Grateful in the knowledge that we are loved. Grateful in the knowledge that we are not alone as we choose to individually and collectively do the work of healing the world, of reweaving the mended cloth of our lives, of re-knitting the tattered strands of the yarn of our days. We are grateful for each other, grateful for the love that we know embraces us, and grateful for our ability to face the world with hope, with kindness, and with deep commitment to justice. In the presence of each other and in the presence of this love, we pause now in quiet, for rest, for rejuvenation, for inspiration, for possibility. We pause in quiet together. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. Friends, will you join your beautiful voices together as we sing Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor? Before I begin today, I want to let you know that a lot of my words today are going to be about things that are going on in our wider denomination. And this may not feel newcomer friendly. So if you're visiting, I apologize for that. Sometimes we take this time on a Sunday to share what is going on for us as a religious movement. And I hope, though, as I hope for all of us, that what I'm saying will give you an idea of who we are as a community and as a larger movement, that you'll see what we're up to in a way that tells you something about who we are and how we see our work in the world. I will do my best to use as few acronyms as possible. When we light our chalice each week here in our sanctuary, when we share the joys and sorrows of our lives, when we pause in quiet contemplation, when we sing Spirit of Life and Fuente de Amor, we do these things here in this community to center ourselves in this place with these people, to orient the attention of our lives and to our lives in the valley, in this neighborhood, in this room. But we are not alone in doing those things. As we often say, other congregations across the continent are also doing these things, lighting their chalice, sharing their joys and sorrows, singing and being quiet together. Unitarian Universalists across North America and even around the world engage in these rituals, these practices of community and connection. We are not alone. It is true that we are a congregation which has the right and the responsibility to govern itself, to collect money and make decisions how best to use that money to support our work in the world and within these walls, to decide what to do with our buildings and grounds, to discern where we will focus our efforts and our resources to best help our local community craft justice and equity and safety, to decide what it is we want to learn about. We are a congregation which has a right and a responsibility to hire staff and call the minister they choose to craft shared ministry together. We do all of these things. And we are at the same time part of something larger than ourselves. Our congregation is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. Formed in 1961 with the merger of the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America, the purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association, after this referred to as the UUA, the purpose is, and I'm quoting from our bylaw, the bylaws of the UUA now, devote its resources to and use its organizational powers for religious, educational, and humanitarian purposes. Its primary purposes are, 1, to assist congregations in their vital ministries, to support and train leaders, both lay and professional, to foster lifelong faith formation and spiritual development, to heal historic injustices, to support and encourage the creation of new Unitarian Universalist communities, and to advance our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. These words, that description, come from the newly revised second article of the UUA's bylaws, formally changed by an overwhelming vote at this year's General Assembly in June. Now, the General Assembly, I may refer to it as GA in the future. So, General Assembly is the annual gathering of delegates from Unitarian Universalist congregations around the country. Until recently, it was always held in person in a different city each year. General Assembly is many things for many people. It's an opportunity to make large statements on issues of the day, a time for learning, a time for connection and celebration, a time for honoring transitions for religious professionals, a time for large collective worship. You've never sung Spirit of Life until you sung it in a room with 3,000 people, 1,500 people. A time for amending bylaws and deciding the direction of the larger denomination. What happens at General Assembly is binding and directive for the institution that is the UUA, and guiding and inspiring and sometimes admonishing for congregations and individual Unitarian Universalists. Each congregation in the Unitarian Universalist Association sends delegates in a number determined by their membership size to vote and collaborate and learn and confer on the issues before the Assembly. Our congregation this year sent 3 delegates, Jane Zahn, Walter Gendell, and Linda Savard. Bob Rancourt, our board president, also attended, and I have delegate status as a minister serving a congregation. It can be a powerful and transformative experience. It can be expensive and overwhelming as well. So much happens at General Assembly with worship services and workshops and budget hearings and general sessions with reports and presentations and debates and music and voting and meetings to collaborate ahead of time on items to go before the full assembly. In the past, all of these things happened on site at General Assembly, usually these days in a large convention hall. Recently, though, because of the pandemic, General Assemblies have been online or hybrid. This year's General Assembly, just this past June, was entirely online. Everybody attended electronically. And much of the early collaborating on issues and items happened ahead of time in online discussion boards and Zoom meetings. Now, for some, this addition of technology introduced difficulty and confusion. It's a lot to take in. There are a lot of different ways to play around with things. For others, though, it provided opportunities to participate and collaborate in ways that were inaccessible when everything happened in person. General Assembly, as I said, it was an expensive thing to go to. And so we in this community have lived into this balance, haven't we, as we navigate how we will continue to gather for business, community, and worship as the pandemic locked us down, and as we navigated and continue to navigate how to use technology in helpful ways now that we are gathering in person again. Now, a lot happened at this General Assembly, as a lot always happens, and I want to share some of it with you today. There will be many things I won't talk about today, and I'll probably talk about the things that I talk about imperfectly. But some of those things I don't talk about, we will encounter in future worship and learning opportunities here in the coming months. If you want to dig deeper into any of the things, any of this, and find out more about what happened, I will be sending out a reading list with links in the coming week's newsletter as well as in our community Facebook page if you want to dig deeper. But there are three kinds of things that I want to talk about a bit this morning, which I carry in my heart as we regather for this coming church year. I'll start with the one that we've been talking about in this congregation and across our denomination for the last few years, the changes to Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. Now, a reminder, for those of you going bylaws, that this part of the bylaws is not just about meetings and membership. Article 2 outlines the purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association, speaks of our common values, speaks of our inspirations of our individual and collective spiritual journey, speak about inclusion and our commitment to freedom of belief. Now, if you'll remember, this change came first to the General Assembly last year, after months of consultation, meetings, feedback, collaboration, and listening. The study committee that was charged with doing this presented new language to the General Assembly in June of last year. These words were talked about, dug into, debated about, and then the Assembly voted that we spend another year with them and then vote again one more time, as our UUA bylaws demanded at this year's General Assembly. We have to pass them twice because they're about our values. Now, there was a process to permit proposed amendments, and lots were proposed and a few were considered by the Assembly, but only one amendment, a rewording of the equity value statement, passed and was included. And then the entire revision was discussed in a general session. Those for and against adopting this new language that described what we have in common, what values drive us, all of those folks spoke and shared their vision and their fears, their concerns, and their hopes. There were voices wholeheartedly in support of the new language. There were voices who were not overly enamored of the new language, but who supported us living into change as a way forward. There were voices vigorously opposed to the new language. Of these voices, some feared a loss of how they understood themselves as Unitarian Universalists. Some felt that the then current 7 or 8 principles were clear and inclusive and didn't need to be changed. Some saw these changes as symptomatic of changes going on in our larger movement that they had issue with or felt increasingly alienated from. In the lead up to the session where Article 2 was discussed, my colleague, the Reverend Victoria Safford, offered us a reflection in which she reminded us that we have been here before, that the principles we had were also contested and also voted on and also resisted. She observed, and yet here we are, not destroyed. We can neither be brought down nor saved by any bylaw change. It's the way we move that matters, the way we move forward together, the weight of the trust and respect and compassion we bear for each other, the strength of our great covenant. However we vote, we put love at the center, unflinching, insistent. And after a lot of learning and grappling and conversation, the amendment to the UUA bylaws was overwhelmingly passed and has become a new way for us to talk about what unites and inspires us. Each individual, each congregation, will discern how these new values and inspirations are lived out in their lives and works, as we will do over the coming years. You've probably noticed a couple of changes today already. Look at the back of your order of service. You'll find most of the new language there in the place of what used to be the sources and the principles. I hope that will inspire you to ponder alone and together how we might live into the rich possibility of our movement with love always at the center. And if you were here early enough, you'll notice, as always, we have Jack to thank for our fabulous images during our service. But before the service as well, Jack created new slides reflecting the 6 values and love at the center. So I hope you'll come a few minutes early next week so you can see those. Thank you, Jack. Jack's in here somewhere. There he is. Thank you, Jack, for that fabulous work. Other important things happened at General Assembly too, of course. Each year, the Assembly considers up to 3 actions of immediate witness. An action of immediate witness, I told you there would be lots of lingo, is a statement about a significant action, event, or development in the world that necessitates immediate engagement and action among Unitarian Universalist member congregations and groups. This year, the Assembly considered and adopted 3 AIWs. The first was centering love amidst the ongoing impact of COVID-19, which invited us to continue to do the work of protecting the most vulnerable among us as COVID continues to be devastating in our communities, to support health and safety for all of our community members, even as we continue to live into a new normal. As I said, the full text of it will be in the links that I send out later. Secondly, an AIW called World on Fire, Humanitarian Work and Climate Change, which asked us to strive to remember that climate change is affecting each of us differently depending on where we live and our economic and social status. We're asked to, quote, reduce alienation and suffering by working with marginalized groups to support community and labor organizing in the face of climate change. Mutual aid and celebration of liberation, resistance, sustainability, and accountability are needed in every season. And the third AIW this year was called Solidarity with Palestinians. And it begins, our Unitarian Universalist faith draws on the moral imperative of radical love, and despite all odds calls us to uphold a world where liberation is real and we all thrive. And in the context of the long and painful history of the region, acknowledging the violence of the October 7th attacks and growing anti-Semitism around the world, the AIW called Unitarian Universalists to solidarity with the Palestinian people and an end to the violence being perpetrated against them, to work toward a permanent ceasefire, to work toward massive humanitarian aid, to the release of all captives, and to learn about the history of the region and to end our U.S. military aid to Israel. This is what the AIW called for, and to protect freedoms here in the United States for protests and protesters. The language is strong, some would say biased, and strong and unequivocal, though, in its call for Israel to end this violence. The debate and conversation about this AIW was long and painful for many. It brought back memories of times past when Unitarian Universalists and the UUA have grappled with the issues in Israel and Palestine, and when people have been wounded and alienated in those conversations. Many Jewish Unitarian Universalists shared their hurt and fears about anti-Semitism in the world and in our own movement. And many others spoke of our moral imperative to speak and act against the decimation of Palestinian lives now and in the past. The AIW passed with more than 2/3 vote it needed, but we as a movement, I think, will be grappling with this going forward. I will share that a responsive resolution was also passed in response to other happenings at General Assembly. The responsive resolution called for the return of the hostages held by Hamas and called us to continue to fight against anti-Semitism in ourselves and in our communities. I know that we here have been relatively quiet publicly about the conflict in Gaza. I have, certainly. I know that these conversations affected our delegates differently and deeply, all of them, all of us. And I hope we might be able to talk about it together in ways that honor relationship, that honor history, that honor integrity, and center love as we come to these conversations over the next while. While other decisions at General Assembly point individuals and congregations toward the work of justice in their congregations in the world, a business resolution, so this is a different kind of thing, specifically directs the Unitarian Universalist Association, its board and its staff, to work in certain ways and direct its resources towards specific goals. So actions of immediate witness, other things like that, are aspirational, calling people and organizations to do the work. A business resolution says, UUA, the denominational body, you do these things. At this year's General Assembly, a business resolution was proposed and passed in support of trans liberation and thriving. The resolution begins this way. On behalf of the member congregations and communities of the UUA, we proclaim that our principles and values unequivocally commit our faith to honor and celebrate the full spectrum of gender identity and expression. Being transgender or identifying with any gender other than the one assigned at birth is a beautiful and divine manifestation of humanity, as is being intersex or having sex characteristics that vary from what is considered typical. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worthiness and dignity of each person as a core principle. The ability to live ever more authentically as one's true self is central to a lifelong journey toward spiritual fulfillment. It continues, discrimination against transgender people is incompatible with Unitarian Universalist values and principles. Resistance to transphobia is core to our commitments to justice and liberation. We hereby pledge our collective faithful efforts to the full affirmation and celebration of transgender, non-binary, intersex, and gender-diverse peoples within our congregations and the wider community, and uphold this commitment as a fundamental obligation revealed by our principles and values. That's a pretty unequivocal statement. I will be honest with you, friends. I expected the vigorous and sometimes difficult debate about the acceptance of our new way of talking about our values. I expected the painful and challenging conversation about the action of immediate witness regarding Palestine and Israel. I did not expect or come prepared for the conversation about this resolution, affirming our commitment to the thriving and honoring of our trans neighbors and kin, to be a painful and heartbreaking one. The Assembly overwhelmingly approved this resolution, but some who opposed it used language and shared attitudes that I did not imagine might come from people who claim the same progressive, love-centered tradition. I'm not going to repeat those comments here. That would cause injury. But I think they came from a place of not listening, not hearing, not being curious, and not embracing the inherent worth and dignity of all of us. It was disappointing and it was heartbreaking. And these comments and attitudes were met with a groundswell of powerful, loving, and hope-filled affirmation of the beauty and possibility and holiness of trans lives. One of the proposers of the resolution used the entirety of her 90-second closing statement to affirm over and over and over and over again, "We love you, we love you, we love you," for 90 seconds. It was healing. And in humility, I wonder, where are the places that I have not been listening? Where are the places where I cause injury because I am stuck in fear? Where are the places where I am not curious and not embracing the humanity of my neighbors and kin? What is the humble work that we each need to do to acknowledge that we can each operate from fear and rigidity, and rather than blame others, work to dismantle those attitudes in our own hearts, as well as fight for the rights of others? Through all of this, I hold in my heart more of Victoria Safford's words in her reflection. Words that invite us, I think, into relationships and communities of curiosity, love, and steadfast faithfulness. Words that I want to hold in my heart every day, especially in the months to come. Now remember, she spoke these words before the debate and the vote on accepting Article 2, the changes in how we talk about our values. "What matters to you in this vote?" she said. "And what will happen to that thing if the vote does not go your way? What will truly be lost and what won't, if it's true? What will abide either way, still holding you, still calling out your name? And if the vote goes the way you hope it will today, how tomorrow and in the days to come will you reach out to your people, your UU family, and I mean those who you don't agree with, who may not be like-minded but surely are like-hearted? If the vote goes the way you want, how will you resolve to be an agent of healing, a brave, humble channel of healing and hope? Friends, however it goes, we must stay hand in hand, drawing our circle more wide. The new language of Article 2 of the UUA bylaws outlines the organization's purpose, as I described earlier, and it ends with these words. The Unitarian Universalist Association will actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. May we continue to pay attention to see what is going on in our world and our community. May we craft space and time for conversation and disagreement and grappling together with the reality of this world. And may the fire of our commitment to love and hope and justice widen the circle of our understanding and help us craft ever deeper and more loving, beloved community together. May it be so. And I hope the conversation continues. Friends, will you take a deep breath? Will you rise in body or in spirit as we sing together our closing song, The Fire of Commitment? From the light of days remember, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living brings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you, Reverend Ian. Now for some announcements for our congressional news. We are having a celebration of life for our Reverend Kenneth Torkel McLean on Saturday, September 21st. We'll gather at 10:15 a.m. here to help celebrate the life and work of the Minister Emeritus, Reverend Kenneth Torkel McLean. We will begin with our own gathering ritual and then watch together the service Reverend Ken, at the Cedar Lane UU Church in Bethesda, Maryland. Following this broadcast, we will stay together and share our own fond memories of Ken and engage in our own rituals of celebration and remembrance. On another note, I would like to define as Linda Savard, Ginger Hemingway, myself, and Jane Zahn, had a marvelous week in Terry and Shirley Lemaster's timeshare. In our auction winning this year, we finally got to celebrate, and it was a marvelous week, and we had a great time. And Terry and Shirley, thank you so much. Speaking of the auction, it is time to start thinking of what you can donate. We know now that Terry and Shirley donated their timeshare, so we got to enjoy that. So anything that you can think of to enjoy for the rest of us is very welcome. We will have our silent drop-in auction on Friday, November 8th. The live in-person auction is Saturday, November 9th from 6:30 to 9. If there are any questions, our lovely Carol Lavoie will be more than glad to help you. Anything else? Please contact us and we'll get it out next week. So thank you very much. Where are we? We are at the extinguishing of the chalice. And if you'll follow along, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I do hope you come to the auction. I will tell you that I have again donated the making of handmade pair of socks. The holy socks, we're calling them now. H-O-L-Y, there's no E in that word. They don't have O's in them. Which I will measure. I'll have you measure your feet, and I'll make socks that fit for you. And also, you get an opportunity to choose the topic of a Sunday sermon. Use the power wisely. A reminder that a lot of the stuff that I talked about today in my sermon time and other things having to do with General Assembly will show up in a reading list of links that I will send out in the newsletter on Friday, but will also go out to the community at UUCD Facebook page if you're there. So if you're not there, you'll see them on Friday in the newsletter. I do invite you, please, to dig into them, ask me questions, ask those of us who went questions. You'll be hearing more about just General Assembly over the year, but those are sort of the documents there. And also today we're starting hopefully a monthly practice again of gathering after the service if you want to have a conversation about the topic of the service. We'll take a little bit of time to share individual reflections and then maybe have a back and forth conversation about things as well. So I invite you to, after the service, to go and have some coffee or some juice, have a snack, and come on back in here. Remember, please, only to bring water back in, though, with you here, because we don't want to have to clean the chairs. Reverend Dr. Molly Hausch-Gordon invites us to remember that our power lies in depending on each other, and knowing we depend on each other, and being unafraid to depend on each other, because it's all woven so tight, because everything depends. We are here together, she said, tangled up in the gorgeous ache of love, weaving and mending, and when all else fails, joining our tears, weaving and mending, and when all else fails, joining our tears. With this ache in our hearts and the tangle in our hearts, friends, go in peace, to love and serve the world.